Okay, well, good morning, everybody. That was fantastic. Thank you, David, because that just, as we were singing that last song, I was just blown away by kind of how it's like God links it all in, really, isn't it, into the service. And this is a place of friendship and a place of love. And I love my friends, and I look around and I just love you guys as well. I couldn't do life without my friends. I couldn't do life without you guys. A few weeks ago at the family service, we started to look at this topic of friendship, and we looked at how God gives us the friends in our lives and actually the benefits of having friends. And I asked you, well, what came to mind when I said the word friendship? And for me, the thought that I always have, I associate with the word friend, is a celebration. And so actually, I think back to times of celebration in my life. I think about birthday gatherings and barbecues and noisy meals and holiday memories and, you know, camping in fields and girls' weekends away and adventures, lots of positive memories. And we also looked at how friendships start. And if you remember, I talked about how quite often friendships start with a me too moment of connection with another person, when you realise that actually you've got a shared interest with that person or a shared value. Yet making friends is only one part of the story, isn't it? Actually, you've got to keep them. And the only way that this happens is actually by investing and being intentional and making effort. And I think we're going to look at that in a bit more. I really treasure the memories of friendship. You know, just so many memories. I was just, you know, as I started writing this, we'd literally just walked back across London after meeting a friend for his 50th. And then the trains were on strike. So Steve and I ended up on a Saturday night walking, you know, hours across London, you know, and we didn't want to miss that friend's birthday, and things like driving up to Birmingham and back just because our friend's, not just because our friend's daughter was being baptised, and we didn't want to miss that milestone in that family, that very special family's life. So, you know, examples of effort in friendships, and these are all high points, even the walking across London bit, and I treasure them. But actually, when I think about friendship, you think about the other side of it as well. I think about the friend who drove me to hospital and stayed with me as I lost our first babies and sat with me. I think about the friends I've suffered over the years with depression, and I think about the friend who sat with me for hours and hours and hours when, you know, I actually felt like ending it. I think about the friends who cooked for me for the first 6 weeks when I had Molly and Callum and we had a 3-year-old at home and I didn't know which end of the day it was. And for 6 weeks, friends cooked every single day for us. And I think about all the friends that have been there for us despite the times I've let them down. I've been a rubbish friend, I've been grumpy, I've forgotten numerous birthdays. I've failed them, and yet they're still there. And it just made me think, what causes a friendship to grow and stick, and or not? You know, I just started thinking about that question. So before I kind of crack on, I wonder if I can just pray, because I know this isn't an easy subject, really, for lots of us. We've all got ouches in our friendships and relationships, haven't we? So are you okay just praying, if you don't mind if I just pray first? Lord, we just come to you afresh as Steve has prayed and as we've worshipped, and just ask that you open up our hearts to what you have for us this morning. I just ask that you pour out healing into those ouches. As any of these words hit hearts, I just pray that you open up our hearts to what you've got for us this morning, and that you pour healing into those areas where there's pain. And Lord, any blocks, anything that stops us having the friendships that you want for us, Lord, you speak to us, speak to hearts this morning, Lord. In your precious name, amen. So, apparently, if you want a plant to grow, you've got to look after it. It needs light and water and nutrients, and if it's an indoor plant, it needs to be kept out of drafts, and it needs a big enough pot. And equally, friendships are like this. If you want your friendships to grow, you've got to give them the conditions that friendships need. You need to nurture them. You need to care for them. And we're going to look at some of these conditions now. Before I start, I just want to confess that actually some of this teaching is actually from a podcast I listened to from Tim Keller, which is actually brilliant. So, you know, if you want some proper teaching, Google that podcast. And I propose that there's 6 conditions that enable friendships to thrive. I had to practice saying that bit. I'm calling them the 6 C's, and that is constant, careful, candour, counsel, cooking, and contentment. So, firstly, a friend is constant. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Proverbs 17:17. Friends are a part of your whole life, and they're there for you when you need them. They're available and not too busy for you. And even when the chips are down and you're not functioning at your best, your friend is there constant. Lots of modern relationships are built on usefulness, aren't they? And when someone's no longer useful, they find themselves dumped and that friend moves on. They're no longer useful. And work relationships, kind of networking, can be a little bit like this, can't it? I've had work friends who you socialise with and you're actually quite close to them while you're doing that job. But then as you move on, that friendship kind of peters out. And that friendship was seasonal. And that's okay. You know, that fulfills a purpose in life. But actually, the friendships that sustain me are the people that I've known for years and years and years, those people that have been a constant in my life. One of my oldest friendships, not oldest friends actually, in case she does listen to this because she's praying, I've known for over 34 years. We actually lived together for 7 years as students, so she really does know the good parts and the bad parts of me, but she's always been there. If I rang her up right now in need, I know she would, as soon as she could, make time for me. She's made sacrifices over the years, and even when it's cost her, she's been there for me. She's been a constant in my life. The second C is careful. A friend is careful. A friend who says unkind things or makes hurtful jokes about you all the time isn't really being a friend to you. They're not being careful and they're not showing an awareness of your emotions and your feelings. And this might even be a toxic thing in your life. Proverbs 25:20 says, singing cheerful singing cheerful songs to a person with a heavy heart is like taking someone's coat in cold weather or pouring vinegar into a wound. It shows that someone hasn't taken the time to get to know you well enough and understand how you are feeling, or hasn't taken that time to find out what's going on. At secondary school, I was actually bullied quite a lot by a group of girls. They did really horrible things like, one birthday, they ripped my new coat that I was wearing that day, or another time, I mean, it sounds really sad now, but they pinned me down and covered me in lipstick in school. The toilets in my London Comprehensive were a really terrifying place. And yet I called these girls friends. If I talked about it to one of them afterwards, they would say, oh, we're just joking, we didn't mean anything by it. And I know this is quite an extreme example, and hopefully people haven't got experience of being bullied. But actually, how many times do we disguise unkind words or unkind things as I'm only joking? There's a phrase that you're only as unhappy as your unhappiest child. And I don't think you have to be a parent or a mother to understand that phrase, because I think it's the same with friendships. Actually, if your friend is hurting and has shared it in a really vulnerable way with you, actually it will impact you because you carry that burden with them. It's why you can't have an infinite number of friendships, because you can't carry an infinite amount of pain or suffering. A friend can't go around singing happily while their friend is suffering, and they definitely can't go around singing happily to that friend while they're suffering. 6 weeks ago, my mum's best friend got diagnosed with bowel cancer, and it had spread, sorry, it's a little bit, this is all a little bit new to us. So it had spread around all her body, and my mum was absolutely devastated and walked a very short journey with her friend for the next few weeks because they were so connected. My mum couldn't separate from what was happening to her friend. She held her hand in hospital as she died just over a week ago, and I can see the profound effect that that's had on my mum because she's so connected with this lady. The third C is candour. Being candid means being open, honest, and frank. Proverbs 27:5 and 6 says, "An open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy." And this theme needs a little bit of an unpack because it's a little bit countercultural, isn't it? Do you know what's meant by the phrase friendly wounds? In my head, it was like scoring an own goal, so couldn't really get my head around this one. But it's not. It actually means words that are said in love that we need to hear. I'm not talking about the people that say, "I'm just being honest," a bit like that "I'm just joking" gang, and then say something quite painful and hurtful for you to hear, when actually it probably would be wiser or kinder not to say those words. I'm talking about the friend who calls you out on something, and that's why it's countercultural. The friend who loves you enough to speak the truth to you in love. I've got a friend called Hayley who's a truth teller. Some others of you know Hayley. And she said many things to me along the way, and I hope she's not listening to this. But she said many things that I didn't want to hear, if I'm honest. When I found it really hard coming to church when the kids were younger and Steve was working for the church, I found them really hard to juggle, if I'm honest. And so for a while, I sort of tried to stop coming. And Hayley wasn't having any of that. She's so full of love and compassion that she made space to challenge and then to pray with me on that subject. And I wanted to just run away from church, if I'm honest, run away from God as well, because it was just all a little bit too much for me. And boy, am I grateful to her now for her love that kept me here, kept me at Jubilee at the time. So if you're facing something that's really sitting quite uncomfortably in, I'm going to say your tummy because I'm a preschool person, but it's your stomach, isn't it, really? If you're facing something that's uncomfortable in your tummy, then find a friend, a real friend, to work it through with. Don't just keep ruminating and spiralling on your own in that topic, because you might get stuck. Actually, sometimes we need our friends to help us over that issue, whatever it may be. Find someone who loves you enough to tell you the truth, which actually is a big thing. We live in a world of flattery, don't we? At uni, I had a super popular friend, and we sat down one night, and I was like, "Wow, what's your secret? How are you so popular?" And she said, "I tell people what they want to hear." Oh, it's just shocking. She just literally didn't tell the truth. She told people whatever she thought they wanted to hear. She certainly had loads and loads of friends. I don't know what she's up to now, but I do know that those friendships that I saw her have didn't last very long. A friend who doesn't tell you the truth actually cares more about themselves than they do about you. And that's because they care more about your reaction being a tough, uncomfortable reaction than they do your greater good. And it's a really sad fact of life, but the older you are, the richer you are, the more senior you are in your job, the more successful you are in life, the less people tell you the truth. Painful words are painful for us to say, and they're also painful to hear, aren't they? They're uncomfortable. But do you care enough to say them to your friends or hear them? I just think that's something God's got for us. It's a little bit uncomfortable, so I say it kind of quite lightly because I know it's quite hard words. But the next C is counsel. To listen, support, and give advice to each other. Proverbs 27:9 says, "The heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense." We're so much more aware of the impact of feelings on the impact of feelings on us than perhaps in the olden days. And medical research really recognises now the impact of counselling alongside medication in the treatment of mental health conditions. Yet a counsellor isn't a friend. They will listen and they will gently challenge you, but they don't self-reveal. It's a one-way relationship. But conversations with friends can be absolutely life-changing. As we listen and we hear about and we share the feelings of others, as we're vulnerable, our views and our opinions change because iron sharpens iron. It's why it's so important to surround yourself with good friends, because then you will get good counsel. Friendship's a two-way dynamic back and forth between wisdom and concern. Sometimes we need to reassure a friend and just care for them, be there for them. But sometimes we need to challenge, and too much of either just won't be balanced. Proverbs 15 talks about a multitude of counsellors helping us succeed. And when I think of a multitude of counsellors, I think of my university mates. And there's four of us, and we still meet at least every half term. And obviously we've known each other for a few years now. And I've been able to bring some really big stuff into this group and some really teeny little inconsequential things as well, and receive some really sound counsel over the years from this group. So actually finding your multitude of counsellors is a good idea. But to benefit from counsel, we need to let people in. And we need to be vulnerable and intimate with others. And this is risky, isn't it? When you share yourself, you're risking something. If we always present ourselves as manufactured and perfect and, social media ready, best side up, people won't get to know the real us, the us inside. And you'll actually miss that opportunity to receive that counsel because people won't know you. So next one, we're getting there. Next one is cooking and cuppers. I'm actually cheating here because this one is all about David's preach, which is hospitality, but the H didn't work, so it's cooking and cuppers. Many times people have said to me about their difficulty of making friends, and people have talked about, being sad that people don't invite them round. And this is a really horrible feeling, that kind of, I can't make friends. I'm not taking it lightly. But there is a really good remedy that I do say to people, and that's invite them. It is brave to invite people into your inner space. I get that. It's, your home is your inner sanctuary, and to share that with someone is a big deal. But we need to get real about this, don't we? And I'm speaking to myself as well here. We live in a culture where we don't show people our mess, both physically and emotionally. And if cooking a meal is not possible for you or is too much, then invite people around for a cuppa. And actually, sometimes that's too much as well, and I get that, and not possible. And if this is too much, why don't you invite someone for a walk? Because actually it's the invitation that counts. It's being brave and inviting people. When Bethan went to South Africa on a trip that Steve and some others took the youth on, the biggest part of the trip that she came back with was from a time when she had some time with some of the amazing people in the townships. And she came back with a really changed sense of hospitality compared to ours. And she said, "Mum, you're always stressing about the house and what you're going to cook when people come round. You're always worrying about it." Yet these people had so little, and they didn't ever apologise. They just opened up their home and shared everything that they had. And she said it was so different. And, it just makes you think, doesn't it? Something about how she shared that has actually stuck in my heart, because I work over in Rowledge now, and I work with some really, really affluent people. And I'm ashamed to say that sometimes I'm I worry about inviting them around to my house. What will they think? And this stops me inviting people sometimes. Just it's not biblical, and I just wonder what stops you inviting people. What stops you sharing that inner space of your life? When we invite people into our home, they get to see us, don't they? Warts and all. My friend Jane has this amazing gift. She can expand a meal to whoever's sat in front of her. She's always got every bedroom full of guests in her house, and she never ever leaves anyone out. She'd be mortified if someone was on their own. Sometimes their house has been in complete chaos. And I know she won't mind me saying this because it's actually my kids that have caused a lot of the chaos over the years. But it doesn't stop her providing the best roast dinner if you turn up on a Sunday. You know you can come into her house and just shove a pile of paperwork out the way, grab yourself a glass of wine because you won't notice, and then snuggle up on the sofa just as you are, no pretense, come as you are house. And that's one of my aspirations. I'd love to be like that. So before we get to our last C, I just want to divert for a second and think about, why is friendship so hard in our culture that we live in? Why is it so painful? And we thought a little bit about this in the family service. And there's a different answer for all of us, isn't there? If I say, why is friendship for you, everyone will come up with a, different answer. But we've got pressures from social media, from time, things that come at us all the time. Busyness stops us having time and energy to invest in friendship, doesn't it? I mean, I would love to have more time for friends. And social mobility, moving, looking around this room, how many people have moved from different places? It stops us forming these deep attachments. And just as we form them, we're off again, aren't we? So many things act as a block to friendship. And I believe that comparison is one of these. It's actually a thief to friendship. Through social media, we can communicate quite an airbrushed, unrealistic, kind of filtered, those of you that can use it, not like me, I'm talking to other people, unrealistic version of our actual lives. And we can compare our lives to others with envy and resentment and bitterness. And comparison can actually cause us to wallow. When our kids were younger, we didn't have a lot of money. Because we're very rich now. We were able to. We are, yeah. It's my second bank account. We were able to afford a cheap campsite for a holiday, and we didn't have any spending money though. And so we had to do things like only one of us could take the kids to the swimming pool because we couldn't afford for us both to go. And a week earlier, our car had blown up as well, so we'd borrowed a car. Friends had lent us one to go away in, but I spent a lot of that holiday laying awake just worrying about how we were going to make ends meet actually when we got home. And I came home to Facebook and I saw that absolutely everybody in the whole world had been somewhere amazing in the summer and had the most amazing summer holidays, abroad in all these five-star hotels, absolutely everybody. Load of rubbish. But I felt so sorry for myself in that moment. I can actually still remember the feeling of sitting at my table, what I felt. And I came off Facebook at that moment because I couldn't handle the comparison. And yet that was only one perspective. And this is why I'm sharing this story. Because actually, I know now that we were fortunate to even own a tent and be able to go away for a couple of days as a family. That was a good thing to do. And we were safe. And the kids actually loved that holiday. And when they talk about it, they remember trips to the beach and playing some board game with Steve that imagination. I don't even know what they were doing. I don't understand the rules today, but they still talk about this game that they actually loved. And they're really, really positive about it. And it's just my reality was marred by comparison of what I thought everybody else was doing. I couldn't actually see the blessings that were there right under my nose. And some of the friendships I've shared, I know it's been a little bit heavy, and I've shared the good bits, and I haven't shown the ugly side of those relationships over the years. I confessed then about envy, but I do struggle with comparison and envy, and I don't know what you struggle with in your friendships, but All of my friends have so much more successful careers than I do. Most of them are more financially successful than me. All of them have bigger houses. They're all slimmer than me. It goes on. They're all more intelligent. They're all prettier. It just goes on and on and on. And it's an ugly list. And I'm not proud of this ugly list of comparison that I do with these very good friends. My friend Helen is married to a really, really successful businessman, and financially they have got a blessed, abundant life, and they know that. Um, there have been many times when we were younger when I could look at what she can afford and be quite jealous of that. Yet God has really used this relationship to speak to me. He's used this affluence to teach me about some deeper truths. Because Helen is one of the kindest and most generous people I know. She sat with me for days when I was, well, weeks actually, when I was in grief, helped me to pick myself up when I couldn't. And she actually taught me to love and have fun and open up again, to live again. She open-handedly shares everything she has, and she serves God in her church, through her church, so much. She could actually just afford to sit at home and relax and not work and just consume the good things that she can afford in life, but she doesn't. She constantly gives herself to others. She uses what she has to serve God and others. So when we find ourselves comparing, capture that thought and bring it straight to God, because it is a worm and it will grow. Comparison leads to envy and jealousy, and these will just destroy our friendships. When we measure our lives against the plumb line of someone else's life, it can actually be crushing. And I'd say as well, within that, it's prejudging someone's circumstances. And I know this can really happen within a church. So people can look at other people and make a judgment about their life without having a clue what that person is carrying inside. People's lives often aren't quite as rosy and charmed as they might appear from, just that quick glance. So this brings us back to our last C, contentment. It's far better to seek contentment, to be contentment with what you have and share what God has blessed you with your hands with, than looking at friends' lives and wishing it was ours. So we have it, our 6 conditions that are needed to grow and nurture great friendships. If we're constant, careful, candid, full of great counsel, we don't compare, and we're content, we will build friendships. But actually we're human. So how do we do this in reality? Well, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? We need to look to Jesus for the strength to be a friend like this. The night before he died, he sat down with his friends and shared how we can find this love. He told his friends that we are to love each other in the same way that he loves us. That the greatest love there is to lay down your life for your friends. And that we will be known as his friends if we follow him. And I think you've already prayed it, Steve, this morning, but actually what an honour to be friends with Jesus. What a privilege. I think we don't kind of often sit in that and think, wow, our God can be our friend. When he died on that cross, he opened up his arms of love and he made a way for us to be in a permanent friendship with God. He created us, he created you to be in that perfect friendship with him. And through this act of love and sacrifice, our friendship with God is fully restored. It's fully there. Jesus is always there. He is the constant. He does care. He loves us as we are. He's truth. He's love. And he won't let us down. We don't need to be afraid or to hide, because he'll never reject us. And the freedom that brings, the power that brings for change in our relationships, allows us to be great friends. And it's one thing to love your friends, isn't it? I think most of us can manage a bit of love for our mates. But yeah, so most people, and I think people who aren't Christians love their friends, don't they, as well? But as a church, we're called to something deeper. Charlie, a couple of weeks ago, helped us in our growth group to think about that, because he led us in a Bible study on fellowship. And it's a really fantastic example, because often we gravitate to people that are the same as us, don't we? Yet the expression of the kingdom of God, and this is actually my image almost of heaven, is a kingdom full of people who are incredibly different, but all worship together side by side as friends. Hope Church has brought us all together, and many of us wouldn't have come across each other in our normal everyday life, and yet here we all are as part of Hope Church. And we're all different, and we're called to love people who are different. We're called to love each other. And the Bible goes even further than that and says that we're actually called to love those who are our enemies. Luke 6 talks about God's people shall be known for their love. Are we known for our love? Are we known for our love in our homes? With the people that we share our lives with, the people in our homes, are we known for that? Would those people that live with us say they know us for love? Are we known for our love in our workplace, in our schools, in our colleges, in our groups? Do we care for others? If not, what stops us? Next time you go to retaliate or to react badly, again, stop and ask God to help you react in a different way. And I'm going to come to an end now with the Paul's words to the lost. I need a cup of tea now. I'm going to end with Paul's words to the Ephesians, which are just as relevant to us today. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbour, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. It's counter-cultural stuff, and it's counter-instinctive as well, but it's what makes us, kingdom people, distinctive and different. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what's helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another and yourself, forgiving each other and yourself, just as in Christ God forgave you. And this is costly, it's risky, it is countercultural, it's the opposite to I'm a celebrity, isn't it? It's absolutely, if this has the power, this friendship has the power to change the world. God has chosen you, and he's prepared friendships for you, for your good. Does that make you excited? It makes me really excited that actually there are still friendships. God's got this. Our loving Father has planned the table, he's chosen the guests, and he provides a feast. So let's make him the friend at the centre of our tables. The friend our hearts desire, and watch as this transforms our lives into having the rich friendships we need to benefit us. The rewards, not an abundance of possessions or power or position, but a growing relationship with God and friendships that reflect his love for us. I think if I've learned anything about friendship, it's to hang in and stay connected. Fight for them and let them fight for you. That's true. Let them fight for you. Don't walk away. Don't be distracted. Don't be too busy or too tired. And don't take them for granted. Friends are part of the glue that holds life and faith together. Powerful stuff.